Hello, so the West German Geiger counter I bought has arrived and the seller gave me a really nice note. Now he actually has a website, so if you want to visit his website where he sells various check sources and that, if that focuses, it's radiationreadiness.com. I checked it out and he's got quite a lot of pitch blend on there, which is nice. But I've already got loads of pitch blend at the moment, so I don't really need any more. But he also sells detectors. So what this one is a West German one. I did have the exact name of it, I'll put it in the title, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And this is quite a cool detector because it has both an internal probe and an external probe you can plug in. So obviously the external probe is a lot more sensitive. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't do alpha on the external probe, it's just beta and gamma, and it's beta and gamma on the main detector. So I'll just zoom this in a bit so you can see the sort of connections on it. So if this focuses, because the lighting isn't great at this time of year, you've got the detector itself. Now this switch goes between the external probe if it's plugged in, the red, and the internal probe. The internal probe, or sort of, Geiger tube is at the top. If you open it, it's beta and gamma. If you close it, it's gamma and X-rays basically. It only has a gamma symbol on, but it'll work fine with X-rays because it works the same as gamma, essentially. You have your zeroing thing there. I've not needed to zero it, it seems fine. What this does is, I don't know if it will work with it turned off, it doesn't. That's the light, so when you have it turned on, that's just to put the little light on at the top that illuminates the controls. That's for the battery that would have originally been in it, like the original old obsolete battery. I have no clue what type it takes, because I think it has 4-pin connectors in it. But luckily, this takes D-cells, so you can see there it's got its external power source on it, rigged up to its little D-cell thing, which can go in your pocket if you're carrying it, or a bit of webbing or something. I also bought it, like I said, with this little bit of radium-226 in a proper sealed thing. So what I'm going to do, and obviously it has headphones that plug in, and this one is a really good Geiger counter in the sense it makes really good loud Geiger clicking noises. And you can see on there, made in Germany, so made in West Germany, if it focuses, because obviously, like I said, this isn't ideal for trying to focus stuff, but anyway, it says made in West Germany on the little earphone. Hopefully that's focusing a bit there. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the headphone close to the camera's viewfinder. The reason being that way when it ticks you can hopefully hear it a bit better, if I actually get that looped over there properly. I'm just trying to do it without getting the wire in the way. Right, there we go. Hopefully that's going to be out the way of the wire. Right, so let's first flick it on. So there you've got the battery zeroing bit. To zero the battery sort of step up bit, you do that. I've got it basically on the line or a bit over, because obviously with batteries it will fluctuate a bit as they warm up, cool down and stuff like that, but this will be sensitive enough. So then you have your 0 to 50 Roentgen one, and the bottom scale for that is, I think, just basically counts per second of radiation, like in terms of beta decay. And then again, you have 0 to 1000 milliroentgen, so 0 to 1 Roentgen essentially. Then you've got 0 essentially to, I think that's 100 milliroentgen on this scale. Then 0 to, I think that's just over 10 milliroentgen. And then, oh, that's on the last one, yeah. So the interesting thing with this is, yeah, that's the 0.1 to 10 milliroentgen scale there. So, as I said, the measurements are slightly different, because obviously the red measurements are if you had the probe in there, so you can see the actual needles going completely down now if I do that, because there's no background radiation, it can't detect without that in there. Now, the probe is more sensitive, so what I will show you here is, obviously, if I open this to be beta and gamma, if I put the little radium sample I've got here to this, it probably won't read much on it, because that's not a very sensitive little window in the top there. Now, it's certainly sensitive enough for my proper radiation sources, but for a little thing like this, you can hear it obviously is picking it up, but the actual little probe is a lot more sensitive as you'd expect. But that's obviously good enough, that little window. If there's beta contamination, obviously this is a very weak sample, but I wanted a bit of radium-226 that was actually, like a proper sample, if you like, not a, like a aircraft dial or whatever. So what we're going to do now is we're going to plug the probe in and start using the probe to begin with. So we'll close that we'll flick that to that, close the lid again for a minute, and now we'll plug the probe in. Now the plugs on these are all like 4-pin connector sort of things, same for the headphones. So you just slide back the little catch on the side, and let's line that up the right way, that way. There we go. And you can hear already a bit more clicking because it's a lot more sensitive with this probe. You've got a little window you can open at the end. I think that's to allow the sort of beater through easier, or very soft beaters. You can also, if you really wanted to, take the, well, I wouldn't recommend it, you know, because of contamination reasons, you can also take the probe apart like that, and then you can obviously directly put a sample close to the little window. So yeah, let's, with that open like that, I'm going to just test in case this does pick up alpha radiation in a minute, but let's first just see how high this will go on the scale. So if we put that to the 1 to, is that 100 milliroentgen scale, I think now? That's gone off scale. But again, this is using the probe that's designed more for sort of CPM or whatever. Because yeah, you're meant to be, if you're using this one, referring to the bottom bit anyway, but... And then let's go to our, or have I gone backwards there? Oh no, I went backwards that way. Right. So now we're on the 1 to basically Roentgen scale. I think, yeah, this probe does pick up alpha radiation because of how sensitive it is. So yeah, let's hold that thought and let's get some americinium-241 and give it a test. So first we're going to bring in my strongest americinium source. That was off an industrial smoke alarm to test actually if this probe picks up alpha radiation or not. So that's here. Let's pop that down there. Yeah, that's an alpha reading probe. Okay, so that's cool. So this probe is alpha, beta, gamma, the external probe. As you can see, because that's just doing that. So, and then if we put it onto the highest scale, or have I gone backwards again? Yeah, there we go, that's the 50 Roentgen scale. As you can see, yeah, that probe definitely reads alpha, so that's cool. This is an alpha detecting Geiger counter, I wasn't expecting that. I just want to see how accurate it is, or as sensitive, even if it's in its proper shielding. So let's put the shielding on. So as you can see there, with the window closed, you're barely getting any radiation coming through. You do get a little bit of gamma off of americinium. And then let's open the window again. So yeah, with the probe outside of its plastic housing, it is a lot less sensitive, as you can probably hear. So yeah, it can detect alpha radiation, but bear in mind, when it's inside this probe, because of obviously contamination protection, it's designed to, you know, do it, you know, protect a lot more. But yes, if you take this out of its housing, as we have just found out, it can detect alpha radiation, but obviously be very careful with that, because it'd be very easy to damage a probe like this, but in terms of contamination or puncturing the end window. But yeah, that's very interesting. So this probe detects alpha, beta, and gamma, depending on what configuration. So in theory as well, using my carbon-14 source from, is carbon-14, isn't it? From, yeah, carbon-14 from my old other West German radiation detector, the really sort of silly one. Let's see. Yeah, that gets quite a good reading, even with the window like that. And then with it open to the softer radiation, yeah, that goes basically off scale. So yeah, that's very interesting. So there we go. Right, you've seen the external probe. As I said, the external probe is the more sensitive bit. So let's unplug that. Now switch to the internal probe. And now go all the way down on the radiation readings, because I want to see how sensitive this is. Again, I know it's not as much. Oh, I need to open the window again. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, interestingly, that carbon-14 is barely registering on there. The reason being is carbon-14 is a very soft beta source, and it's struggling to, you know, just get through the sort of, you know, housing of the Geiger counter. So there you go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to test the internal probe against a very strong radiation source and see how high it goes. And my camera's running out of battery, so I'll do this quickly. Right, first we're going to do some tests using I've safely got it encased in plastic, so there's no alpha risk or dust risk, but the radium dial that came off of the that old Soviet meter, the DP63. So unexpectedly, obviously, that is really sort of registering on there. Off the scale on scale number 1. But as said, this is a much less sensitive beta window than the little probe was. But it does have its own internal detector, which is good. And it's also a very small window as well to point out, so there's probably a lot of this radiation that's just bouncing off the case. Now if we just test it against the gamma only on there, you can hear some of the gammas coming through. If we go back to the lowest scale, going the wrong way again. Or am I? No, that is the right way. So it's basically off scale for the most part, with a strong radium source through the gamma alone, but obviously as soon as you open that beta window, it picks up a lot more. So let's see how high this beta tube can go. Right, so time to get out my strongest check source. You know, the Soviet one of... So even with the window closed, some of that is getting through, even though it's beta radiation. Right, let's not mess about, let's open the window and do all the scales. So lowest scale, as you can see at the moment, of scale, 1 to 100 milliroentgen of scale. So now 0 to 1 Roentgen essentially. I think that's pretty much off scale, isn't it? Yeah. And the highest scale, and again this is beta radiation, not you know, gamma, because again the Roentgen scale is actually designed for like gamma and X-rays, not beta radiation, but it still gives you an idea of dose. You're meant to be using basically the counts on this for the other part, but here we go. Now that actually is a very accurate reading for this, because it's just over 1 Roentgen, which is what an ionisation chamber tells me this check source is. But there you go. The West German Geiger counter is very, very good, and although they don't sell samples like this horrible thing, Radiation Readiness, as I said, which I bought this from, does sell some of the detectors, plus lots and lots of natural pitch blends, you know, and things like that. So, much safer, naturally occurring things. But, yeah, this West German Geiger counter, I'm very impressed with it, because as I said, it's a little thing. You know, it's got its own probe that actually detects alpha radiation as its own little external thing. Yeah, let's just close that back up to protect it. And yeah, you can run it easily because it comes with the adapter for D-cell batteries, rather than requiring you to find whatever weird old obsolete battery it uses in there. And it clicks like a good one, like all old Geiger counters do. So yeah, it's a nice, cool sort of bit of equipment. And as you can see, now that's in the glass, completely safe.